Hello, everybody. This is Chuck Wiger, and today I'm visiting with Scott Nadeau. He's the Public Safety Director for Maplewood. Welcome.
Thank you, Chuck. It's great to be here.
And as Public Safety Director, you oversee the police operations, the Public Safety Emergency Response Team, through the fire protection. You've got a large responsibility.
Yeah, it's a great position. It is complicated though, because I'm the police chief and I'm also the public safety director, which means that I oversee the fire department and the fire chief and the emergency medical service.
Yeah.
Since Maplewood Fire Department also runs a ALS ambulance service.
Great. Well, tell us about your background, because you're relatively new in the position, but you've been in law enforcement for a very solid career. But tell us about your background and what brought you to Maplewood.
Absolutely. Well, I started in Brooklyn Center in 1987 as a police officer. So I've been a police officer for about 31 years, and it's been an amazing career.
Gosh,
I worked as a police officer and as a detective and then as a supervisor. And then after about 22 years in Brooklyn Center, I went to Columbia Heights to take the police chief's job, and I was there.
Where did you go to high school?
Oh yeah, I went to Robbinsville High School, and then Robbinsville Cooper after Robbinsville High School closed. So I was born and raised in Robbinsdale.
Okay. Particular activity that you really shined in, or that you'd like to share?
I would say that as a young person, obviously like a lot of young people, I was involved in athletics. But even as a young person, I really enjoyed volunteering and working with people with disabilities and really doing what I could to help support the less fortunate. So I would say that was a passion of mine from an early age.
Wonderful. And then after graduating high school?
So I went to community college and became a police officer at the age of 21, so I wasn't very old.
Great. What school?
I went to North Hennepin Community College,
Great.
actually.
Great.
And then while I was in Brooklyn Center, went back to school and got my graduate degree from Metropolitan State University, and began teaching a number of college classes. I presently am still adjunct faculty at St. Thomas, University of St. Thomas, and at Metropolitan State University. So after being in Brooklyn Center and rising to the rank of commander, again, I took the job in Columbia Heights, and I was there for 9 years.
Why did you want to become a police officer?
I really, again, I have a passion for wanting to help people, and I also have an interest in justice, making sure that people are treated fairly and making sure that justice is served, and working with community, building partnerships and collaboration to do great things in the community. So all of those have always been interest areas for me.
Great ideals.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate to have a job where I'm able to, use my passion and really my accumulated experience and skills to be able to do, work in the community with others.
Okay, and then just highlighting the career path before arriving to Maplewood.
Yeah, so again, 22 years in Brooklyn Center, which was an amazing experience, and then 9 years in Columbia Heights, and I've been a passionate advocate for community policing. And when I became the chief in Columbia Heights...
And tell us, community policing, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, community policing really is working with the community to build partnerships.
Yes.
And so it could be working with neighborhoods, it could be working with businesses, it could be working with multicultural groups, it could be working with youth or school age. But really it's understanding that the issues that we have around crime or around poverty are not necessarily issues for any one group. It's really people working together to work on some of those challenges. And so my time in Columbia Heights really was building on my experience in Brooklyn Center, where we engaged multicultural populations and newly arrived immigrants and our youth, and we won a couple of international community policing awards, and really just helped the police department to transition from a more traditional model of response to crimes to really trying to work to prevent crimes and make sure that we were doing that hard work of building relationships.
So all about connecting, understanding, and that is the key to prevention.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when I got to Columbia Heights, I would say that a lot of the officers really saw their job as just responding to calls, and by the time that I left, a lot of our officers, actually the majority, were involved in mentoring through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, getting to know the youth of our community and being mentors and role models and getting out of the squad car and meeting different populations. And in the time I was there, I was very fortunate to be able to diversify our workforce. So we had Somali police officers and Ethiopian police officers and Hispanic police officers, and really, working again in that community-oriented mindset where we need to be not apart from the community, but a part of the community, building those important relationships and working together on issues.
And how are you translating all of that rich experience into what you're doing in Maplewood now?
Well, from the policing standpoint, I really think that it's been a lot of fun so far. So one of the things that I think has been important in my history is the ability to measure and to do strategic planning. And so this is the first year of a strategic plan for the Maplewood Police Department. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talked about was that community policing isn't just the job of the one or of the few, it's everyone's job. So as a part of our strategic plan, every staff member needs to have at least 12 hours of building positive relationships with community. So whether it's, we had an event a couple of weeks ago with our Karen population, yep, where we were working with them and really working on building that relationship and letting them know who we were and inviting them to be a member of the community, or whether it's working with youth. We've got a lot of youth outreach that we're doing right now and working with our senior citizen community, but really helping our officers to understand that there's a lot more to law enforcement and policing than just going out and writing some tickets and responding to calls for service. And so that part has gone really well. And then in the fire department as well, working on community prevention efforts. So we've got a community paramedics program that we're excited about right now, and we're working with our full-time career staff now on how can we better serve the community and in the time that we're not responding to calls, really work with the citizens of our community to have a better and safer experience.
And you mentioned a strategic plan overall, and is this all in writing where you're going to measure the results?
Yeah, very much so. So our strategic plan in the police department, as an example, really, first of all, falls under the community strategic plan. So, yes, we are under the umbrella of the city, and so we want to make sure that we're not an island, but an important part of that strategic plan. But in the police department, there's 5 overall objectives that have to do with reducing crime, working on building prevention, building community partnerships, making sure that our officers have the training and the tools that they need. As an example, we've made the working on our officers having the ability to be effective in working with people with mental health crisis. And so yes, each of our officers will go through a 1-week training called CIT as a part of our commitment to wanting to improve their ability to have successful crisis intervention training.
Okay, so important. I mean,
it is.
Read about what's going on in America, and you've got a program to address that as aggressively as you can, and training is an essential part of that.
It is. We want to make sure that our staff really has the tools and the training that they need to be successful in those encounters, and not just respond to a home and see your job as calming things down for a short while, but how can we work together with some of our nonprofit partners to really create a better experience for people that are suffering in a mental health crisis, and be involved in long-term planning and working with perhaps a caseworker or a county employee, just so that we don't have recurring issues of people that are suffering from mental health. We want to be more proactive than that.
Great. Public safety is obviously a fundamental role of government. People need to be protected and have that expectation to exercise their freedoms responsibly, that they'll have protection. And that's why we have such a high priority at the legislature, at the local level, in getting the best department we can. Tell us about the size of the department. For the police, you mentioned, the fire, the emergency medical service, but just overall, the number of people and overall what the investment is.
Sure. So in the police department, including myself, we have a complement of 52 sworn police officers. So the majority of those work in the patrol division, and they respond to 9/11 calls for service, and they're out working with the community on prevention efforts. We've got about 5 or 6 detectives, and then we've got some administrative staff, and we have some non-sworn staff, which is broken down to people that help with records and that type of thing. We have a crime analyst that helps us to see.
And by non-sworn, you mean?
Non-police officers.
Okay.
Yep. So
They're still under a high standard, but
absolutely,
security.
yeah.
But
We've got a large contingent of volunteers. We've got a
very
police.
important too. Yeah, the volunteers. You see a
Yeah.
lot of them.
Yep, we want to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to leverage, the resources of the community to do the most that we can. So we've got about 25 police reserves right now that help us with events and traffic control and that type of thing. And we're also giving them some exposure to law enforcement because many of them want to start that as a career.
Good. And the budget overall?
It's about $9 million.
Okay.
So, obviously running a police department and a fire department are expensive.
Yes.
We try and be as, financially conscious of that as we can.
Yeah.
But in almost any police department, personnel costs are going to be over 90% of the budget.
Yes.
So, most of that money goes to people.
And your goals for the strategic plan, the budget, this is all available to online, I suppose, through the city website. And where if people have more questions, they can contact you or someone at the city to learn more.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chuck. We're committed to transparency.
Yes.
And being accountable. And so, when we talk about, how much the budget is, we want folks to know what our priorities are and what it is we seek to do. And then, again, we want to be transparent about the results of what we're accomplishing. And so we do have that readily available on our website. We've also got, things like a report on our enforcement actions from last year and broken down by things like race and age. And we want the people in our community to know that, their police department is not only working hard, but, working in a way that's just, working in a way that's fair, and, appreciates all of the members of our community.
What might be the top two issues that you're faced with right now as a department?
I would say that
As it relates for the police.
Sure. The policing is difficult these days. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of scrutiny on police. So we're working very, very hard to let the public know the things that we're doing, to engage some of our new Americans and our multicultural communities, to engage communities for us that have been difficult for us to reach in the past. And we're doing that for a variety of ways, whether it's coffee with a cop, whether it's working with some of our school-age kids.
Yes, I know you guys are out there.
Yeah, we're working really
Guys
hard
and
at that.
ladies,
Yep.
everybody.
Yeah, we're working really hard at that. And, I think that we've made some really great strides. And, that's, again, reflective of not just the police, but citywide efforts to engage communities. So that's one thing. The second thing, really, I think, is getting back to having more of a problem-solving methodology in our police department. So, again, getting out of that, waiting for the radio to go off and just responding to calls, and really seeing, kind of where are we having issues in the community, and then how can we work with community to rectify those issues. Yeah. So, if it's break-ins to automobiles in a certain neighborhood, how can we work with community to prevent these types of crimes? How can we figure out who the people are that might be doing this through social media or other means? In the old days, I think that police would just saturate areas of town that were having problems with enforcement. And I think that we've understood as a profession that that's probably not the best way to approach things. Yeah. That we want to make sure that we are holding people accountable that are committing crime, while not unnecessarily enforcing other laws in neighborhoods where it's important that we're growing relationships.
Great. Well, you're doing a wonderful job, and appreciate all the outreach that you're doing. And I recognize, too, you're in a very stressful position. You have a very calm demeanor about yourself, but so much on your shoulders, I know, in terms of what you have to do. May I ask, what do you do to relax, and anything you'd like to share about that part of your life, family?
Absolutely.
That type of thing?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I do to relax. I just came back from a 4-day motorcycle excursion to the North Shore, spent some time with my wife and another couple in Grand Marais, Ely, and so I enjoy doing that in the summer. I like to do some bicycle riding, so my wife and I do quite a bit of that. And I have 2 sons who are 22 and 20, and I spend a lot of time with them. really enjoy that. I'm also a big brother through the Big Brothers program, and so
Wonderful.
again, one of the passions that I have is being able to reach out and help other people through mentoring or just through volunteering and stuff. And so there's a lot of different ways that that I find fulfillment and enjoyment. And again, it can be a stressful job, but working with people in the community is such a great experience that it's its own reward. So.
Well, thanks. And as you carve out your legacy, how might you sum up how you want to be remembered when you've completed this part of your career?
You know, I appreciate that question. I think that it's not as important to me to think about how I would be remembered, but when I leave the job at Maplewood, I would want our citizens to realize that the police department in Maplewood, the fire department in Maplewood, were much more community-centered, that we were much more involved in outreach, whether it's asking the community how we can partner better, what their concerns are. So really making sure that everyone in our community understood that we were there to serve them.
Yes.
And that we were working hard to connect with them and understand their needs. I think that that was a legacy that Columbia Heights built over the years, and it is my hope that in Maplewood we'll do that same exact work, that hard work of just building those partnerships and then leveraging all of those partnerships to do great things in the community.
Maplewood Public Safety Director Scott Nadeau, thank you so much for joining me today and for your
Thank you,
service
Chuck.
for the public.
I appreciate that, and thank you for all that you do in the Senate.
Great. And viewers, if you have questions, suggestions for Scott, I invite you to go to the website for the city or give a call. I know he and staff will follow up as diligently as they can. Thank you.